You know, one of the things I've got to ask you as a fund owner, fund manager is how much of muscle do you use from being that fund operator when it comes to making an offer? In other words, I've often taught my students that, you get to the point you do one-offs and then you get to the point where you want to build up a fund where you can go out there on your own. You always have that big, chunk of change behind you. And that will enable you to make offers a little bit more aggressively than you would have if it was just a one-off and you didn't have the funds. In other words, all right, maybe I'm going to make an offer $100,000 hard on day one if you accept my offer, because I've got the 100,000 sitting in the fund that's just sitting there, and I want to put it to use, and I want that property, and I want to make sure that my offer rises to the top among all the other people bidding, because I got the money, because I got the fund. So do you ever look at it that way? Do you ever make offers that way?
There's a lot of advantages, and the biggest thing is you get yourself in a situation where you're closing deals in the community and just building that level, and they know you have liquidity. Like, we got this liquidity machine, and then people who want to close the deals, you understand it. There's so many different levels there, so many people involved in the transaction. Look at the closing statement of how many parties get paid. Jesus, don't mind me saying that word. Is like some of the attorney fees, because you have to hire the attorneys in the local markets. I'm like, that is outrageous. And all these people benefit, and they want to know if you can close. That's the number one thing. The seller wants to know, the brokers, all those players involved. So getting that reputation, that's a tough thing to do, is getting that reputation of closing a deal. And you got to prove that to get your deal. In some cases, that's where it's good to team up with someone, or maybe even do like a co-GP if you have that trouble, if someone a little bit more seasoned who has that reputation, maybe your first couple deals out of the gate, to prove to that community that you can close a deal. That's always been the tough part when you start out. I've been there. I understand. I've been there. I was that person with that idea, that young person that thought I'd be retired by now, but
yeah, no. Hey, let me ask you, Craig, which came first? You as the multifamily investor, or you as the guy with the idea to come up with a fund to do all these things?
Good question. I always saw apartments. Let me go back to a board game I played as a kid, Monopoly. You start with the houses, then you get in the hotels. You want to own the property on Park. We actually have a property on Park. Yeah. And so it kind of saw a natural evolution of my career. I would kind of get to that level. Whereas the syndication comes in, it's like when you learn how to do it, at first you're working with one person, and then you work with two people, 10. And so I built something out like this. So it kind of paths mirror each other. It's kind of a natural, gradual, organic, I would say, maturation in the process of a career in real estate.
Yeah. Yeah. So did you see yourself doing it at the same time, or was there a point where, okay, I'm just focusing on building the fund, and then I'll get back into finding the right deals, because it's so much easier if you have a fund?
Well, I was taught funds in the late 90s, early 2000s. And I first had to establish myself as with my first company. And I think that started in 2003. So I had to establish a reputation first of doing that. And then I remember talking to, I called him the godfather of funds in my local area. It was about 2005, and decided against to doing a fund then in November. Some of the stuff that we talked about underwriting wise was just not making sense. People were just funding stuff on basically napkin underwriting. And so I said, okay, I'm not going to do my fund. Crash happened. Then I opened up my first fund. Oh, wow. And so I think that was a good no decision right there for my career, because a lot of the funds, a lot is understatement, is they blew up. Yeah. And there's a lot of horror stories with that. But I was able to crash. I was able to call people up in my first fund and go, hi, this is Craig, the person who didn't lose your money in the downturn. How can I help you today? And so it was a little bit easier to fundraise back then for myself. Now, today, everything's automated. It's online. There's no talking.
Exactly. There's a whole cottage industry now. There's a whole cottage industry of those types of things.